Hey, this is Meridith Elliott Powell. You know what time it is. It is 8 a.m. Eastern, Saturday morning. It is time for Sales Logic. And I am hanging out here with my partner, Mark Hunter. Mark, we got a dynamite show today, right?
Oh, we do. We're going to be talking about inbound or outbound. Ooh, this is going to be controversial. What's the best way to generate leads? And we got a great lightning round because we're going to talk from a lightning round. That's the piece we do at the end of the show. Top 10 ways to get a prospect to engage.
Ooh. Yeah, I love this. I love this topic of, is it better to get inbound leads or outbound leads or some combination of the both? If you are struggling to get leads, this is really going to be a dynamite show for you. All right, let's dive in. All right, time for Sales Logic. Today we're talking about inbound and outbound leads. As always, we cover a question from you, the audience. Listen, if you want to be a part of Sales Logic, we would love it. Just go to saleslogicpodcast.com, enter your question, and we'll feature you right here. Mark, let's not hold back anymore. Let's go ahead and dive right in to today's show.
Okay, here's the argument. We got the team on the left side of the field is inbound, and the team on the right side of the field is outbound. Okay, what's the best way to generate leads? What's the take from you? I think it should be both inbound and outbound, but I see too many people relying on just inbound leads. If they just throw enough stuff out there, somehow they're going to get enough. Ooh, man, I hate that.
My feeling on this is I think inbound leads are little gifts from heaven. And, back in the day when I used to be a banker, my feeling was anybody who walked into the bank was never going to be as good a lead as I went out and got. So I kind of fall where you do in the middle of this, but let's really break this down. An inbound lead in today's marketplace is a little bit different because maybe you're doing a lot of marketing and PR to drive that inbound lead. And if you are doing a lot of marketing and a lot of PR to really drive that inbound lead, then it's probably a pretty good inbound lead. But an outbound lead, you control. You did the research. You went after them. You know that spending time trying to get this lead is a good use of your time.
I'm going to push back a little bit on that inbound lead because sometimes inbound leads, they're not qualified. They are not qualified. So, I love the approach that you used, and I'm sure you had a great process. But what I cringe at is when some people look at these, they look at their inbound leads, and they're nothing more than names. They are nothing more than. And I think what you got to do, you got to be doing stuff to generate inbound leads. But what that's doing is it's also opening up the marketplace for you with your outbound activity. The two do complement each other.
Yeah, I love Bill King asking a great question here. Could we talk a little bit about adverse selection from inbound leads? I see this in lending. The more someone wants to talk to me, the less qualified they are. My God, Bill, I can so relate back when I was a banker. That's what I mean. People would be wasting my time. The thing about an inbound lead is you need to qualify it fast. If they are a good lead for you, still control the buying cycle, even on an inbound lead. And I'm going to tell you, Mark, I disagree with you. So many of my inbound leads lately have been really, really dynamite leads. They're seeing me do the podcast. They're seeing the content that I put out there. And they're just like it said here, they're 50% sold by the time they get to me because they have read my content, they've watched my videos, and they know I'm a good fit for what they've got going on.
See, and I think that's the reason why is because you've developed enough of a reputation out there. You've developed enough awareness out there. So people can kind of self-qualify themselves before they reach out to you. Where I don't like this is where people just throw out like, hey, I'm going to do this webinar, I'm going to do this thing, or one advert, and they think anybody who signs up for it is a great lead. No, that's not. Because you haven't gone through the qualification process and the person doesn't really know enough about you to know whether or not they self-qualify. And this is where I get into a little bit of an argument with marketing people over MQL, marketing qualified leads, and SQL, sales qualified leads. The leads you're getting, they're clearly self-qualified, sales qualified leads because you really know that they are good and they wouldn't be reaching out to you if they knew they weren't a right fit for you. That's perfect. That's at the mature level of marketing efforts. I love that.
Yeah, and I think that there's, I think we're onto an interesting subject here as far as generating leads. I think if all you're doing is outbound leads, you're making sales harder than it has to be. And there is a lot of value to a marketing qualified lead. And Mark, I'm curious to your definition, because I do a lot of webinars. I throw a lot of mud at the wall, and I invite people to get on my list so I can nurture them along, so I can build a relationship. And you're absolutely right. I have 200 people sign up for a webinar. I'm lucky if 25 to 30 of those are qualified. And my nurturing process has to figure out who's qualified and who's a good use of my time. I did a corporate event 2 weeks ago, and I reached out to my salesperson and I said, don't, all of those at the end, they get a QR code because I'm building my list. I said, don't follow up on any of those leads. They're not good leads because they're people who worked in a corporation. They're not going to hire me necessarily to do something else. But I want to continue to nurture them along in my newsletter because I don't know who they know. I don't know where they're going to wind up. So talk a little bit about the marketing qualified lead and the sales qualified lead.
Well, I love what you're describing because the marketing qualified lead is somebody who responds to something. They respond because they signed up for a webinar or they know, but they're not sales qualified because you don't know if they have a need, and you don't know if you can help them, and you don't know what the time frame is for them to make a decision. Those are the three things that I look for in terms of a sales qualified lead. And like you said, you get good inbound leads, yeah, because you know you can help them, you know your time frame, and it fits in with them. So that works well. Here's a situation: I see too many salespeople getting caught up in, wow, these were all people who responded to a webinar or something like that. Okay, there's three things about signing up for a webinar. A, they may be people who are just plain bored. Okay.
Yeah.
B, they may be people who were told to sign up for something, or they may be somebody who is actually interested. You don't know that off of the initial registration, right? Just like you told your person, you met with these people and you gave them a QR code, but don't follow up with them. This is the whole thing. One of the things that I did was I put this topic into the sales logic brain, and it came back with a very interesting insight. It came back lead management. It said, because you've really got to dissect your leads and understand who you may already have, because you may already have the right people in your CRM system, in your marketing database that you should be reaching out to. Ooh, you see what this is? It's taking inbound and now turning it around to outbound. But like you said, you got to nurture them. And that's a longer term process.
Yeah, it says, I love this from our LinkedIn user. When you're selling a low ticket service, pre-qualification is definitely an issue. But when you're selling a high ticket, if someone pre-qualifies themselves, it's like saving a ton of time. You're absolutely right. Like I got 2 really strong inbound leads this week. And I would even argue that they were inbound leads, because if I hadn't put a lot of marketing out there, they never would have become inbound. So I really want our listeners to understand, you can't just sit there and hope that inbound comes. You're still working to get an inbound lead. But I think that your sales process needs to be a combination of both. Like I do, and you and I do a masterclass we do it every month. I do it for my business every month, and I'm casting a wide net. I'm getting a lot of names in there. And then I nurture those along in step 2 of my sales process. And then I have my ideal outbound calls that I go after that physically take my time. I nurture with my newsletter. I nurture with videos. But then my time is spent on people that I have already qualified from an outbound perspective to be that I'm looking to close the sale.
See, I love what you're saying there, because you're moving them through a very distinct process, and this is absolutely key. The audience knows I love to spend a lot of time on the phone calling customers. I'm not calling random people. I'm calling people who are at the bottom of that funnel, that 1 or 2 phone calls, and I can move them over the top. That is so key, because again, the most valuable resource we have is our own time. We got to use it wisely. But this is where the marketing efforts to generate inbound leads is still critical for somebody who is outbound focused. It's just, you want to make sure that your marketing efforts are focused, very focused against your ideal customer profile. It's one reason that I use LinkedIn a lot. I use LinkedIn a lot. That is my primary tool because, again, that's where my audience and my posts are all around sales, around prospecting. Why? Because that attracts that very specific type of person. I love Mark Bregman, member of our mastermind. 49% of inbound buyers have bought the wrong product because they didn't properly understand their problem. Yes, so you can't just consider them a closed won deal. You still need to work. Yes, this is key. We in sales have to remember that whether it be inbound or outbound, sales is not something we do to someone. It is something we do for someone. You've got to make sure that they're getting the right need taken care of. Otherwise, we are just destroying our reputation.
Yeah, Mark, speaking of reputation and things like that, did we have a question this week?
Yes, we do have a question this week. It comes from Anza Mastava in New York. He says, hey, what's the best way to find, generate, and engage with leads? Inbound or outbound? Gee, that's the topic we're talking about. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, they usually, let's talk a little bit about the best ways to find leads. Mark, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the best way is of course, you first got to know who your best customer is. And don't fish in ponds that have fish that you don't want to eat, okay, or throw back or whatever. Stay in a very tight. Salespeople out there, the tighter the space you stay in, the better off you're going to be. That is the number one rule, and that's why I say that. Hey, all of our webinars and all the things that you and I do, and we do a lot of other things. We connect with people. It all stays within our space very intentionally.
Do you mean a niche?
Yes, absolute niche. And yeah, and the tighter the niche, new salespeople love to throw this broad net, right? They just love to go after anybody and everybody. And big mistake. I remember when I first left corporate America and I got into this whole thing I'm doing, I was casting a wide net and it was stupid. The tighter we become, the more of an expert we become, because there's a lot of knowledge out there in the marketplace, a lot of knowledge. You're not going to be successful unless you're seen as the person who brings knowledge. So you've got to stay absolutely tightly focused.
So when you're saying to find a niche, because I think this is an interesting topic, when you say to find a niche, is it an industry? Is it you as an expert? What, like if I sell in financial services, how do I define my niche?
Well, your niche is what kind of customer do you think you can help the most? In other words, is it a hot, if it's business to business, is the business in a certain type of industry that requires extreme amounts of cash flow and capital? Okay, that's going to be different than a retail that is doing rapid turn, low dollar sale. If it's B2C, is it a high net worth individual? Is it a young family starting out? It's you have to define your niche. And again, this is what I find so many salespeople. This is a great question. I love asking salespeople. Describe to me who your perfect customer is. You know what's interesting? Many salespeople can't do that. Think about that for a moment. No wonder we have problems, whether it be inbound or outbound.
Yeah. Hello from Pakistan, and please don't worry, you are not late. And I think Bill King is right aligned with you, Mark. He's saying that finding the target is key to preventing wasting time. Now, I want to get back to Anza's question here, the best way to find leads. Number one, I'm going to tell you the way that I build my lead list every single year. My lead list is part of my past clients because I want to continue to build and deepen relationships with people I have already done business with. Part of my lead list is I look who my competitors are doing business with. Number one for that, it's a lot of pre-qualifying off of my back. If they're willing to do business with them, they probably fall into my arena. The second is I'm pretty sure my competition is going to screw up and I can add more value to that relationship. And then part of my lead list is always my prospect list, finding leads. It's always referral or influence. I'm basically working those.
Hey, I'm glad you brought up the word referral, because I was going to bring that up, because, this is so interesting. I talk to people and I say, hey, referrals, is that inbound or outbound? I think it's all bound. I think it's both, because, but referrals are absolutely the greatest way for anybody to grow their business. And I tell this of anybody, and you know this very well, that if the number of referrals you're not getting every year is not steadily increasing, something's wrong with either your product or your service, in terms of how you sell. Because again, as you develop more of a reputation out there, if you know your ICP, you should be generating more and more referrals. That's absolutely a key way. So, I mean, the whole thing that I think makes referrals more valuable is when you're actually doing marketing work to generate inbound, because somebody can talk about you. Oh yeah, I'm familiar with Meridith. You know what? I've caught her on that podcast. I've listened to things. It is amazing how it is much easier to refer people when they're more well-known in the marketplace, or their company is more well-known in the marketplace.
I agree. You can't do enough. I want to go back a moment to Bill King here and defining the target, because I think this is very important for the discussion that we're having. Let's assume that I am building my prospect list for 2025 and I find somebody that Mark has done business with. That is still not a lead for me. I still have to define that they're an ideal target. Mark could have done that work for free. It could have been the worst client that Mark ever had. So the very first call that you ever have with somebody, even after you've done the research, is taking what is defined as your target market and asking questions to clearly define whether they fit in your bucket. When we talk about defining a target market, and Mark, maybe we should do a show on this. I have 10 qualifiers, and people have to meet 6 of those 10 in order for me to continue to spend time there.
Yeah, okay, you have 10, I have 9. And I always say, if you don't match up to at least 6 of those, I may return the call, but only to refer you to somebody else. I am not looking at it. This is what's key. That inbound lead, no matter how good they are, is a suspect. They're not a prospect until you qualify them. And that's absolutely critical. I see salespeople even making a mistake. They take this inbound lead and they immediately assume and put it into their pipeline number for the quarter. Well, no wonder they fall short, because they haven't done anything to qualify. You've got to be very cautious here, because there's a lot of fake prospects out there. There's a lot of fake leads out there who they're just looking to have a conversation, or they're just looking to gain information. They're looking to reaffirm a decision they already made. You've got to qualify them. And you got to find out that the 2 biggest things I look for is what's their timeline for making a decision? And 2, are they actually qualified to make a decision?
Yeah. And I think, so this is such a good statement here from our LinkedIn user. I think niche would be real estate, prop tech, Series A startup, has revenue of 500K. That's what I think is niche. No, not enough. Let's assume I call on a real estate company that's 500K and that's my niche, but I get in there and the person that they have been using is the CEO's brother-in-law. Disqualifier. Second, it is, that they haven't even put this project into their budget this year. That I get in there and the person I'm talking to really wants me to do this project, but none of the strategic partners have bought into it or are aligned with it. That's what we're saying is, some of my qualifiers are, and again, Stacy, we will do a show on this, but what, as Mark said, what's their sense of urgency? Is it in the budget? Am I talking? I don't only want to talk to the decision maker. I don't pursue it if I can't have access to the CEO. I have had way too many projects blow up on me if I can't have access to the to the CEO. So we're going to do a show on this, because you've got to understand that just because a lead fits 2 or 3 things, you've got to dive in to really understand if they're a lead.
See, I like the description that person wrote, but you got to go further. You got to go further, and it's got to get to the actual individual you're dealing with, because buildings don't make a decision. Capital assets don't make a decision. People make the decision. So you got to understand who is the person behind that. That's absolutely key. And don't ever think that Well, in B2B, it's not emotional. It is emotional. It is emotional,
always
backed up
emotional.
by facts. So you got to be absolutely careful on that. So this whole thing, I love what Bill Snow is saying. Get a description of what your ideal client looks like, document it, and have it on your wall. Yes, you've got to. This is the avatar. This is the avatar, and you can never ever forget that's the person you're always selling to. And if they don't look and talk and walk like that, guess what? It's not there. Get out of there.
Yeah, you want to always be selling from a place of power rather than a place of need. And as salespeople, we have to understand that deciding to spend time with a prospect is saying no to other prospects. And you want to maximize, you really, really want to maximize your time.
Well, it's where I go to this that says, hey, I want to spend more time with fewer prospects. I love that Natalie chimed in. She's one of our mastermind members. She's masterminding with one of our other mastermind members. I love how this mastermind works. This is the value. Hey, if you haven't checked out the mastermind, check it out. We want to have you join us because it is so valuable. But let's come back to this whole thing. The number of leads. This is where inbound and outbound again separate. Inbound tends to be this quantity thing. I got all these inbound leads coming in. Boy, I got to be very careful. This is why I've got to treat them as suspects. They're not prospects, because my whole goal, I said it earlier, I'll say it again, it's to spend more time with fewer prospects, because that's how we really understand the value. That's how, because my whole goal is any prospect I turn into a customer, I want them to become a referral partner for me.
Yeah.
This is a natural food chain that they have to go through.
Yeah. The other thing, and we'll talk about this when we do a show on it, the reason that you want to work in your avatar space and know your avatar space is they're the easiest client to make happy, and they'll go out and sell other people. When you don't make a client happy, I failed on one about 3 or 4 months ago. When I look at it, I thought, what was I even doing? Like, why did I close that? Like, I was set up to fail from the start. And now the client's not happy with me. And it's completely my fault because I sold from a place of need rather than a place of power. But Mark, we are burning time.
Wow.
We've got to get to the book and the lightning round.
Correct. It's amazing how active we can be at 7:15. Right. Hey, the book from our good friend Influence Redefined. Have you got your copy there?
Oh yeah, I've got I've got it. I think I have.
Okay. Well, it's okay. I trust you. I know you got it from our friend Stacey Hanke. Excellent book. I tell you what, I love it because she really breaks down and challenges you as to how you are spending your time. John Register, it's about time you wake up. Come on, we've been going the show for ages. So anyway, grab that book. Natalie jumps in even when a client may be a fit. They may know someone who, or when they may not be a fit, they may know someone. Yeah, you know what? See, that's why I still stay engaged with people from a marketing standpoint, because you never know when you can turn it. We got a great conversation going, but you're right. We are burning time. You ready for the lightning round?
I am ready for the lightning round.
Top 10 ways to get a prospect to engage.
Number 1, you want to personalize everything. If you want a prospect to engage, customize and personalize.
2, make it valuable to them. It's not about you.
Yeah, and I want to play off that with number 3 is that lead with I got this from Ian Altman, but it's lead with these, I work quite a bit in your industry. These are the challenges that we see. These are the solutions we've provided.
I love that. That's the confirming statement that you're an expert in their space. Number 4, be patient. You're going to have to use multiple mediums. Don't think your communication method is their preferred communication method.
Yeah. Number 5, use either storytelling or case studies or some type of proof.
Number 6, be patient. It may take some time to do it. You may be reaching out to them a number of times.
Yeah. Instead of asking silly questions like what keeps you up at night, go in with, we have found that the people in your industry stay up at night because of these 3 issues. Here's what we've done to solve those issues.
Number 8, the further you get into the process, recalibrate yourself. Do they still line up with your ideal customer profile? Because again, are you chasing somebody you shouldn't be?
Yeah. Number 9, give them a small way to start with you. Give them something, a way that they can test without making too much investment.
Number 10, I'll quote our good friend Larry Levine. It's not commission breath. If they smell commission breath, they will not do business with you. This is an absolutely great show. John registered. Great to see you. Meridith and I were both in Atlanta. John was there. It was absolutely fantastic. Hey, here's the deal. If you like what you hear, subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast app. If something we've said has earned you a single dollar, consider telling a friend about our show, because it's how we grow when we help you grow. I'm Mark Hunter.
And I'm Meridith Elliott Powell.
Remember, when you sell with confidence and integrity,
all of this uncertainty suddenly becomes your competitive advantage.
And the sale becomes logical. And even better when you join the Sales Logic Mastermind.
Yeah, think about if you want to make 2025 your best year on record, think about joining us for the Sales Logic Mastermind. And again, everybody have a fantastic day, fantastic weekend. We'll see you right back here next week, 8 a.m. Eastern, for another episode of Sales Logic. We'll see you then. Thank you, everybody.